When I was 15, a friend made a passing reference to the band Joy Division, a post-punk early Gothic group that hailed from Manchester in the late 70s to 1980. His reference caused me to research them, and after experimenting and listening to their music, I developed a deep respect for the group and their sound. Originally named Warsaw, the band came out of the Mancunian music scene, living in the same atmosphere that produced groups like the Sex Pistols and the Smiths. The band was formed by Bernard Sumner, Peter Hook, Stephen Morris, and Ian Curtis. The group was formed after Sumner and Hook attended a Sex Pistols concert in the 70s. Inspired to make their own music, they went in a different direction. The band developed a unique sound of post-punk, which was an evolution of the music that defined the 70s. Their shift into a contemplative, dark, and gloomy aesthetic also represented the transition into the proto-Gothic music of the 80s. This genre would be developed by the bands that followed Joy Division, Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus, and The Cure. Joy Division incorporated fascistic themes and images, showing both a subversive punk element along with a fascination with the macabre. The group's name Joy Division itself comes from the name of the prostitutes who served compliant prisoners in the concentration camps. The original name Warsaw, itself a reference to the song by David Bowie, reflects a psychological fascination of the British with Poland. Though Britain had joined World War II to protect Poland, the country ended up behind the Iron Curtain. Poland suffered several tragedies, including the destruction of Warsaw during the war, the Warsaw Uprising, the Katyn Massacre, and the Holocaust taking place within its borders. I think Poland's fate represented something bleak and nihilistic, that in the real world not every society experiences justice. I think the Gothic aesthetic found a tragic truth in the history of Poland, revealing why it was a fascination for the English. The singer of Joy Division was Ian Curtis. Joining the band when it formed, he fulfilled the archetype of the tortured artist. Suffering from epilepsy and marital problems, he committed suicide at age 23. He did this just when the band's celebrity was beginning to take off, and just before they were about to embark on their first American tour. With their singer dead, the band reformed itself, turning itself into a new group called New Order in the 1980s. When I was an adolescent growing up, I discovered the band's music and identified with it. Going through my own struggles with identity, meaning, and purpose, I connected with Curtis's lyrics a lot. I think Ian Curtis's writings show a grappling with the tragedy of the human condition, with an understanding of the hardship and alienation that characterize life. I think his songs constitute some of the most sublime works of modern art. I'd like to take a look at some of his lyrics and unpack the insights that he had. So I think this is a good song to start with, and encapsulates a lot of the essence of Joy Division. Ian Curtis's music has this dark aesthetic to it, and you can see this in the melancholic tone of the song. When I listened to the song as a teenager, I had put myself into my own state of isolation, thinking that when I was alone, I would confront and realize some great inner truth about myself. Curtis opens by sharing the fear all humans do about daily life, then expresses how in isolation we have a longing for union with others. He explores how, when we are alone, the mind wanders, and we experience feelings of remorse and regret about the past. Curtis addresses his mother in the song in a particularly powerful and despondent line, saying he did his best in life and by living the ethics he was raised with, but that life got in the way and he failed despite his best intentions. Curtis makes reference to the sublime and suggests that in isolation, there is still the Platonic idea of the beautiful. There's an intuition in the song that the pleasures of daily life are ultimately unfulfilling and a distraction, and that only in aloneness can we access a higher principle, one that our limited human reason can't comprehend. One of Ian Curtis's most personal songs, She's Lost Control, gives us some insight into the inner turmoils he struggled with. When interviewed, Curtis said he wrote the song after seeing a woman at one of his concerts have an epileptic seizure. What's interesting is I think the song is really about him and his own experience with epilepsy. But he's following an artistic trope, turning the subject of the work into a woman to make her more sympathetic to the listener. The song expresses what it's like to be powerless, how it feels to be at the mercy of others, and how it feels to be victimized by a force you can't control. Curtis explores what it's like to lose control of your own body, as well as over your social reputation. The song uses repetition to affirm how horrible it is to lose control of yourself again and again. Curtis sings in an echoing, ghoulish tone, in the process portraying how harrowing it is to lose yourself to an external force. If you watch Curtis's performance of the song, you can see how he loses himself dancing to it, his eyelids drooping and his movements erratic, mimicking the sense of self-loss felt in a seizure. The ancients believed seizures were spiritual experiences, for instance thinking that the fits of Caesar were affliction of the gods. But here we see none of this. Epilepsy is portrayed in a secular way as a dysfunction of the brain. The song shows a sense of feeling trapped, admitting past mistakes, and hoping for a redemption that doesn't come. This song explores the desire we have in life for guidance, never knowing for sure what the right path for us to follow is. It shows Curtis's feelings of alienation and how he doesn't feel the same as other people about life. This is a sentiment I think many people, particularly artists, feel, that they don't fit in with the world. Curtis writes that he has the spirit, the passion and enthusiasm to confront the world, but that the trauma of it injures him. He tries to be affirmative, pushing back against the judgments he feels from others. He confronts nihilism, using urban imagery to show the frenetic, material nature of the world, and using the symbol of the car crashes, apparently random and accidental, that end promising young people's lives too soon. To me, this is an archetypal Joy Division song, and one representative of the Gothic aesthetic. Its lyrics denote a way of life that values the shadow, embracing night and dwelling in it. It contains, to me, one of the most iconic lines of Curtis, his quote, touching from a distance, further all the time, something that expresses a deep human yearning to connect with others, while also affirming the sense of disconnection and alienation that we all feel. In the lyrics, Curtis loses himself in dance, like the Indian god of the dance, venturing into a plane with only sound and no language. Another gloomy Joy Division song, New Dawn Fades, has a haunting tone which ruminates on the themes of purpose and meaning. It evokes the feeling of despair and the hope one might get something more out of life over time. It considers suicide as a removal from the stress of existence. It reflects on the stresses of taking responsibility and blame. It appreciates the quiet solace of taking time to be with others, taking a break from the chaos of life, and having a drink. One of my favorite songs as an adolescent, Love Will Tear Us Apart, was one of the most famous Joy Division songs. Like the others we explored, it embodies the dark aesthetic of the band. While all humans long to connect with others and be loved, our efforts often result in heartbreak and disappointment. Curtis himself was influenced by his own marital problems when he wrote this work. Curtis had an affair which strained relations with his wife. His partner being turned away on her side shows the damage he caused in the relationship. The song itself puts a spin on another work, a more affirmative piece of music, Love Will Keep Us Together. As an early Gothic band, Joy Division wasn't afraid to explore the reality of romantic defeat and disappointment, and created a song that encapsulated the tumult of youth. The title of this song comes from Nikolai Gogol's book of the same name, showing a philosophical influence on Curtis. In the novel, a Russian official goes around from village to village, seeking to buy ownership of the deceased serfs of aristocrats. These serfs are incorrectly recorded as alive on the census and are a tax liability for the nobles. Designated as, quote, souls, the official wants to buy as many dead souls as he can, then take out a large loan on them to enrich himself. While he's initially praised for purchasing 400 souls, his scheme is revealed and he is disgraced. The title seems to refer to the experience of dehumanization. In the song, Curtis ruminates on the dreams of living in a better time. The speaker is haunted by past events and the oppressive influence of society, whether forces of religious or material authority. He alludes to successful worldly figures like conquistadors. The singer is haunted by these voices who keep calling out to him. One of the stillest songs of Joy Division, Atmosphere is quiet, thoughtful, and poetic in tone. It repeats the image of walking in silence, while its lyrics encourage speech, reflecting the sense of alienation felt by Curtis. The song reflects several solemn themes: danger, useless talking, and rebuilding a life after it's been destroyed. It expresses several of the torments of the artist, him causing confusion to others, confronting his own lies and illusions, and grappling with self-hatred. Many artists, from Ian Curtis to Van Gogh to Kurt Cobain, struggle with this inner crucible of self-hatred. It's an interesting question if there is some merit in having this psychological trait. Does it foster creativity? Does it cultivate a greater sense of humanity, and then in consequence, greater, more elevated works of art? Or is self-hatred simply a deficiency that torments the artist for no reason? There's a wistfulness and a yearning for innocence, the easy life, and the apparent sublimity of the subject the speaker addresses, someone who doesn't suffer the torments of the artist. The last song written and performed by Joy Division, Ceremony, has a very different tone compared to the macabre, gothic sound of their former works. Associated more with New Order, who played the track in the period after Curtis's death and the band's reformation, it seems to refer to a vision of an empowered Ian Curtis taking agency over his life. If this is the meaning of the song, it's very ironic this was made just before his suicide. They say you can see the soul of an artist in their art, and when you examine the writings of Ian Curtis, the main takeaway we can find is an authentic grappling with the feelings of despair and alienation. His lyrics show a plumbing into the depths of his humanity, and the wisdom found in the midst of the experience of rejection. Curtis's works have left a permanent impression on my consciousness. As a youth, I identified with him and his unique way of looking at the world, thinking he had a great insight into human nature. I feel his music helped to humanize me and understand the experience of alienation that is a key part of the human condition. While Curtis wrote the songs as a youth, they remain resilient across time. Like Ian Curtis wrote, it feels like touching from a distance, further all the time.